One of the most important things for a modern nation to be able to do is provide for the material underpinnings of its own society. Now, this means many, many different things and has always been true to some extent. It means that the people of a country need to have food to eat, they need to have clothes to wear, and in a modern country at least, right, you need to have cars that you can drive. It also means that the state needs to be able to supply the necessary hardware to have an advanced military in order to provide defense. You need to have ships, you need to be able to build planes, you need to be able to support all of the supply chains in order to project power in the world. Now, this, again, is something that has been true for empires and countries for a very long time. But in the modern world, there's a key distinction in that it needs to be industrial. You need to have an industrial capacity. This is because not only because the ability to produce something like a car is fundamentally a mechanized and industrial thing, but also because almost everything that can be produced today is much more efficiently produced and at much higher scale when it's done through industrial production as opposed to the older modes of production which existed prior to industrialization. Now, the ability of a country to support an industrial capacity is contingent upon more than just various disparate stakeholders existing within their society. It requires a level of coordination. Now, you can see this going back to Britain during the Industrial Revolution. Now, in Britain, there wasn't a roadmap for what an industrialized society would look like because that had never really existed in the world before. However, the state did take a number of concrete policies in order to support the increased production of, let's say, textiles. That was to use up wool that was being produced in Britain but exported to the continent in order to be woven into fabrics and made into clothes. So the British policymakers wanted to bring this home. And as a part of that coordinated policy, they created vast mechanized textile manufacturing and ended up producing the textiles for almost the entire world, and importing raw materials from countries such as India and Egypt and the United States. Now, this same dynamic is at play in every industrial society and every nation in the world that has become wealthy and had the ability to project power and act as a sovereign player on the world stage. So you can see this after Britain. You can see it with countries such as Germany, which wasn't unified until the late 19th century, but very shortly after unification, the German state was able to enact a strong industrial policy and begin doing a large amount of manufacturing in Germany as opposed to importing goods from Britain. The United States, after its founding, also had a similar set of goals and was able to orchestrate a vast array of complex tariffs and other policies in order to wean off their dependency on Great Britain. You can see in other examples that it's not just the creation of this industrial capacity, which is dependent upon coordination. It's also the ability to maintain this. Somewhere like Russia really shows this example very clearly. Now, it wasn't until after the October Revolution, the end of the Tsarist regime, that the Soviet Union was able to really ramp up industrial production at all. And by the Second World War, they were doing very well. With the help of the Americans, they were able to defeat the Germans. Throughout the Cold War, they were able to compete with the Americans on equal standing in several different ways. However, after the fall of the Soviet Union in 1990 and the fragmentation of the various republics, you see that the coordination in, for example, the Russian Federation was vastly diminished. And what was once a very productive economy that was producing enormous amounts of manufactured goods is now importing some of the most critical things. For example, the machine tools to maintain their navy from the West. And Russia is no longer able to truly be sovereign in the way that it once was. Now, there's ways in which you can do these sorts of transitions of the type of coordination in your society that are less deleterious. You can have, for example, in Korea, Park Chung-hee and his military dictatorship industrialized the country from almost nothing But there was a transition after that point into a more liberal society while maintaining the necessary coordination in terms of industrial policy and support for various industries that allowed Korea to become even wealthier and become now one of the most industrialized and wealthy countries in the world. Even in a country like the United States, it's necessary that this coordination be maintained. Since 1945, which was in some ways the high watermark of, or at least the relative output of the United States compared to the rest of the world, there has been a lack of substantial coordination, at least in broad swaths of manufacturing. And as such, the number of things which the United States manufactures domestically and exports to the world has dropped off precipitously. All of this is to say that in order to maintain the industrial outputs that are necessary for a country to both be wealthy and to be sovereign and be able to stand on its own 2 feet, it's necessary that you do substantial coordination with the state and with other stakeholders in your society, not just to build up the capacity, but to maintain it over time and to not lose it and thereby lose all the benefits that come with being able to build your own advanced military and being able to support all of the material needs of your citizenry. My name is Oberon Dixon-Luinenburg. I'm a co-author on a recent report on machine tools, a case study in advanced manufacturing. You can see it linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe.